We're back.
to the Verified Therapists on our surprise episode.
Woo! Bonus episode.
Bonus episode.
And in this bonus episode, we are going to go through 4 different child stars and kind of do a deep dive into them. Each one of them and their background and things that they've gone through in their life up to this point.
We understand that there's a ton of child stars that we could pick from, but we kind of picked ones that were influential to like us and like growing up, and ones that really stood out to us. And the first one that we're going to start with is Britney Spears. And let me tell you, I love Britney Spears. So Britney Spears is the first time that I remember. That's where I started loving pop and pop culture, was Britney Spears. Sorry, my dog just coughed.
I had no idea what that noise was.
I don't know.
Oh, Maxie.
So, he's an old man, so he has old coughs. But
that was such an old person cough.
It was, yeah, because he's old. Anyways, so I remember when I was like 6, 7, 8, I had Britney Spears CDs, posters, Barbie dolls, you name it. I was into it, and I was all about, I wanted to be Britney Spears. So her story through the media is very like, she's the poster child for what the media does to child stars. Yeah. We're going to build you up, and then we're going to strike while the iron's hot and tear you down. And we're going to record your entire fall for everybody to see. Britney was born in 1981. I think it's so wild. So her dad's name is Jamie and her mom's name is Lynn. And I think it's so weird that her sister's name is Jamie Lynn, but we're not even going to go into that. I think it's just a little bit much.
I think it's a little narcissistic, but
I think it's a little narcissistic. She also has an older brother named Brian. We don't really hear a ton about him until the conservatorship days, which is just, he was born in Louisiana. Here, like when you see videos of Britney, like when she was on Star Search singing, like she's always been a singer, so they put her in all these classes and things like that. The quintessential way you start things. She has like this big booming voice for her age. And really, it's not until she gets like a record label that they start babyfying her voice. When she's younger, she's got like a really strong, powerful voice.
Yeah, it's very
We just don't get to hear a lot of it. Yes.
Yeah.
We just don't get to hear a ton of it. He gets onto the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse in 1993. Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, she was on there with Ryan Gosling, Justin Timberlake. Was Christina Aguilera on there too, I think? Yep. Yeah. So she was on there with some hard-hitting people who are still famous today. And then, of course, you know, she dates Justin Timberlake for a long time. So we really see her take off. You know, she gets signed to Jive Records in 1998. And she is 16 at the time, which, like, when I'm 7 watching that, I'm like, oh my God, like, you're so cool. You're so much older. Now at almost 30, I can't imagine signing a record deal at 16 years old. Like, you're still a baby at 16. No, I'm sorry. She signed at 15. Baby One More Time comes out at 16. I have a lot of things to say about Baby One More Time. It's a good, obviously it's a good song. It's the classic pop song. You know, I mentioned how the first 3 notes of the song, you know what it is before it even starts. But she's extremely sexualized at that point.
Oh, yeah. Like the schoolgirl outfit.
And that's when she's like literally launched into space. So overnight, this song comes out. All of a sudden, she's being played on TRL. You remember TRL? I wish we still had TRL. She's being played over and over again on TRL. Baby One More Time spent 6 weeks at number 1. The Baby One More Time album spent 2 years on the charts. So, like, that was a big, massive deal back then.
I still have my CD.
So, me too. Yes. That was the one that got stuck on my finger when I was a kid. Like, and I had to cut it off. Because I was like trying to carry all these CDs down on my hands, and like I was pushed them down on my fingers, and it got stuck. And we tried to use butter and couldn't get it off. Had to cut it.
Oh,
luckily I had 2 of every CD, so we were good. But
yeah, I bet you
so
cried
we were good.
so hard.
I did. I was so upset. But then I was like, now I'm gonna have to open my back up. So 1 year later, Oops, I Did It Again comes out again. Everybody knows Oops, I Did It Again. I mean, she's knocking it down, right? Like, she's the pop princess of the time. Her 3rd album, Britney, comes out. But throughout this whole thing, she's also in this very public relationship with Justin Timberlake, who was the NSYNC frontman at the time. And NSYNC is doing just as well. So the pair together, I know that I had several VHS tapes, and they would have the behind the scenes of a NSYNC music video, and then behind the scenes of a Britney Spears video, and they were on one VHS tape. So they worked together a lot on promoting their stuff, and the backup of that was like, or I guess not even the backup, but like the foundation of that was Justin and Britney's relationship. I think, I'm trying to look, she did Crossroads in 2020, or in 2002, sorry.
Yeah.
And then
what a movie that was. That was not appropriate for me to watch at like 6 years old. But I literally like begged my family to let me go see this and like watch this movie. And I still have like visceral memories of sitting on a couch with my brothers watching this movie.
I loved it.
Because we went to like the local, it wasn't a Blockbuster, but it was like a movie rental place. Yeah. And we rented that because I was like begging them.
Yeah, to watch Crossroads.
So, yeah.
And I loved it. But, you know, when I was doing the research for this, I realized like a lot of critics really slammed her for that. Like, they did not think that she was doing well, like, at that. I think that the best review she got was like, surprisingly, she's okay. And like, at this point, she's still a kid. Like, we've not even reached the 20s yet. Yeah.
Why are you judging a kid so harshly? And another thing, like, that movie is like a cult classic movie. Like, what the hell are you talking about? Right.
Yeah. What are you saying? I'd like to know what it got a phenomenal movie. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, the scene of the girl falling down the stairs, like, lives in my brain rent free.
Yes.
I thought it was so traumatic. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. Because she's pregnant.
When I get pregnant. Yeah. I was like, when I get pregnant, keep me away from stairs.
Yeah. But I think too, like, why Crossroads was so like important for Britney specifically is in the movie, she is portrayed as like this very virginal, pure, clean girl trying to like navigate life. Britney was often put into that box. Like, I remember a lot of like, it's so weird because men would sexualize her and women would view her as like needing to be like a good, pure role model. So it's like, it's a very weird dichotomy that you're seeing with her of like, she's very virginal and very pure and very good, but at the same time, we're going to make her wear extremely skimpy clothes and sexualize her to the point of like almost more than you would sexualize a 30-year-old woman. It's very opposite, and it's very like probably left her feeling like, okay, well, where do I really fit in? Like, I'm just trying to figure out life anyways, and you got people over here sexualizing me, and then people over here like mortified if I even kiss a guy on TV. So like, it's very weird, which is where we see a lot of the stuff with Justin Timberlake kind of come in, because she breaks up with Justin Timberlake, broke up the same year that she filmed Crossroads. They break up. Like, in her book, she talks about how Justin Timberlake cheated on her a ton. I remember the only thing that we heard about was that she cheated on him with Wade Robson. And then Justin Timberlake, after their breakup, he writes Cry Me a River, slamming her for cheating on him. And then he goes on this media, like, smearing campaign and, like, makes jokes about how he took her virginity and says some pretty, like, disgusting things about her and degrading things. And she says in her book that, like, it was, like, a shock to her to have that breakup. So, like, she couldn't even talk about it for months. And you even see her go on to Diane, I think it was Diane Sawyer. Somebody was interviewing her. I think it's Diane Sawyer. And she immediately just weeps the second that it comes up. And even then the line of questioning is like, well, what did you do to hurt Justin? And it's very accusatory. And I think that's where we kind of see that point. She's done this. She's done the Super Bowl halftime show. She's kind of hit the peak of, like, her fame. And I think that when her and Justin Timberlake is when we start seeing the media start to pull her down. And it was revealed in her book recently too that she had an abortion around that time, which Justin Timberlake caught a lot of flack for that. I don't really give him a lot of flack for her getting an abortion just because he was also young, you know? So, like, of course his brain is like, I'm too young to be a parent right now. So, like...
Yeah, and they were at like, the height of their careers. Like, for either one of them, I don't think it was the right time.
Exactly.
To have a kid, and it was their choice at the end of the day, and they made that choice.
Right. But of course that's something that we don't know. You know, that's something that we're only knowing now reading her book, but we don't know about any of this. So, you know, all we're seeing is Britney's spiraling or going downhill, because after that we see her get married to her childhood friend for 55 hours. That's, like, how long they were married for. Which she says in her book was alcohol fueled because she was off for a few days, you know? And then after that, she gets with Kevin Federline, you know, and she's making music this whole time. And her music is, I mean, she's growing up, right? Like, she's not singing bubblegum pop anymore. She's singing more, like, sexual type of songs, because that's what sells. Slay for you. and she's getting a lot of hate for it because, like, all these moms are being like, well, now you're teaching my kid to do this, and now you're teaching my kid to do that. And there's this interview, or, like, there's just, like, behind the scenes shot of her that I love, and it's her watching people give feedback, and she saw a mom be like, you're not a very good role model for little girls. And she was like, well, I don't want to be a role model for your little girls. Like, that's not what I asked to be.
She didn't sign up for that shit.
It's you projecting, like, your own stuff onto somebody else. So she gets married to Kevin Federline in 2004. She is only 22 at this point. And she's, like, had all of this life, and she's only 22. Like, barely old enough to drink alcohol legally. And she gets married. In 2005 and 2006 is when she has the two kids, and in 2006 she's divorced. So she's 24 and she's divorced at this point. And this is when things get really bad for her. I think, let me look, 2007. But 2007 is when the head shaving happens. It's when there's a couple of psychiatric holds happen. And she, in the process of the divorce, loses custody of both of her sons. In 2008 is when her conservatorship happens. And for those of you who are keeping tabs on this or have not heard about it, the conservatorship just got lifted a couple of years ago. So she was under conservatorship for 14 years of her dad. So her dad, who was not a part of her life, really, like, in the upcoming years, like, when she was traveling and touring and making these albums, Lynn, her mom, is who was there. And her dad, she described in her book as, like, an alcoholic who was not present. for any of this. But all of a sudden he comes in with the conservatorship. So, like, now he's a part of her life. And not only that, but he's making all the decisions for her life. She's still being made to do residencies, photo shoots, albums, and yet she can't manage any of her own funds. Like, it's just... And again, I'm not saying that is not a necessary thing sometimes. I just think it could have been handled a little bit differently.
Yeah. But like we said in the first part of this episode of, like, if she can do all of these things and work all these hours and do all these things, why is she under conservatorship?
Right.
That's like where I feel like mental health should have taken precedence if that was the issue here, and it didn't. Finances took precedence, and that's where it shows that it was all about control and not about what was best for her at all. It was just controlling her.
And if we go back to like 2007, 2008, the head shaving was it was on every single magazine. It was on every single news outlet. That's all you heard about for weeks, was how Britney Spears, in some kind of rage, walked into a beauty shop, she asked if they would cut her hair. They said no, and she sat down at a salon booth, took the razor, and just started shaving. And she described that as like, I have been looked at and prodded at and stared at my entire life at this point. This is my way of taking back control of my life and really shedding what everybody's been looking at, like trying to change that image. I think a couple days later is when the umbrella incident happened. She had a paparazzi that was like really like being kind of like invasive. I think they were at a gas station being very invasive of her. And she said, I grabbed the first thing that was around me that I could take my emotion out with, and it happened to be an umbrella, and she took it to the side of his car. And it's like, we drive people to that point, and then we're like, well, you're crazy. It's like gaslighting is what it is.
Yeah. Like they were following her around knowing that she wasn't able to see her kids.
Yes. Yeah, all the custody stuff was going on too.
Yeah, and then started asking her in that incident, which I think was what actually like tipped her over the edge at that point from what she said. Like they started asking her like, well, aren't you a good mom? Like, are you a bad mom? Or some shit like that, like asking her. And she was just like, oh, hell no. Like, I'm done.
Right. Yeah. And we had seen some like erratic. Yes. And we had seen like some erratic behaviors with her as a mom. Like she had an incident where she drove in the driver's seat with her kid sitting up front with her. Like, and we had seen these like erratic things happening, but she also talked about that she went through really bad depression after she was pregnant with her kids. And like, you can see it. They have pictures of her holding her kid in restaurants and she's sobbing. And it's like, we watched this person disappear, who used to like walk onto stage and light up the whole stage and be vibrant and like doing what she loves. We as consumers and as a society took that from her and really destroyed her. I think fame destroyed her.
For sure. And I think like also giving context to a lot of those paparazzi incidents, like in her book, for example, because when she was caught like driving with the kid in the front seat, like she had a car seat in the back, but there was cameras and people pushing and shoving and taking all these photos, and like she could not safely put her kid in the car seat.
Right. Yeah.
And then they were just like, oh, Britney's unsafe mother. It's like, you guys were creating an unsafe environment for her, and she just did the best that she could to try to get out of that situation with her kid.
Yeah. It's just, it's horrible. And I don't think, obviously I'm still a Britney supporter to this day. She was on my graduation for my master's cap, like I love her. I don't know that she'll ever be the same as she was. Because even now, she doesn't have a conservatorship anymore, but we still see erratic behaviors from her. On Instagram, we see erratic posts. And it's almost like what we talked about in the last podcast of like being frozen in time. I feel like Britney tries even now to be frozen in the peak of her life. And the reason I say that is because she still dresses the same. She still has that baby voice. That's not her real voice. You know, if you hear her talk, that's not her real voice. But when she does these Instagram videos, it's like she's trying to capture that again and trying to capture what I feel like is public love for her again. Because that's when it felt like that everybody loved her, is when she was like that. If that makes sense.
I think that kind of goes into the next person we're going to talk about, which is Miley Cyrus. And Britney Spears was a huge influence for Miley Cyrus. And so while Britney Spears was like, obviously I have visceral memories of Britney Spears and my experience and all that stuff. But like the first person that really like pop culture dove into all of that was really Miley Cyrus for me. That was my pop queen back in the day. So Miley Cyrus, for those of you who have never heard of Miley Cyrus,
you're living under a rock if you've not heard of Miley Cyrus.
Literally. But she was born in 1992. She was born to Tish and Billy Ray. And
achy,
Tish had two
heart.
kids.
My achy, breaky heart.
Tish had two kids, Trace and Brandy, with her first marriage, And then when she married Billy Ray adopted Trace and Brandy. And then Tish and Billy Ray had Miley, and then Brayson, and then Noah Cyrus as well. That's how the order of the siblings go. And so they were obviously born into like a famous family. Like while Billy Ray was kind of a one-hit wonder, you couldn't go anywhere without hearing Achy Breaky Heart. Like it was a huge song, huge part of like country music back in the day. And they lived in Tennessee. They lived in Franklin, Tennessee, which if you know anything about like Nashville area, like Hendersonville, Brentwood, and Franklin are the wealthiest parts of like the Nashville area. So they obviously lived in a very wealthy part. But fun fact, Billy Ray was actually born in the same town as my mom. And because my mom is from Ashland and like the Greenup County area. And my uncle used to go and watch Billy Ray perform at a bar.
That's cool.
While they were growing up. So pretty awesome. So I want to say like Miley Cyrus could be considered like the exception to a lot of this because she already came from like fame and wealth and she knew what it was like to be famous. Like she witnessed her dad, you know, have random people come up on the street to him and paparazzi follow them. Like she was kind of familiar with that territory, even though it wasn't directed at her. Like, she performed with her dad even from a young age. Like they went to fairs together. They performed. She was in, I think it was Big Fish, some kind of like fish movie in 2004. I believe that was like Miley's like first acting role. And Billy Ray was on a TV show at the time in Canada. And then Miley started auditioning for Hannah Montana. They really loved her. So they tried to do whatever they could to get her there, which Tish wanted Billy Ray to move from Canada because she didn't want to move her entire family to Los Angeles, kind of like by herself.
Right.
Because Tish's family is from Tennessee and then Billy Ray's family is obviously from Kentucky and like everybody is right there. So she asked Billy Ray to like move to LA and join Miley on Hannah Montana because they were like, we would love to have him. So obviously that's how Hannah Montana got started, like the father-daughter relationship between the two. You really see that portrayed on TV, and that happened in 2006 was when Hannah Montana premiered. And from that moment on, all eyes have been on Miley. She hasn't really gotten a break since Hannah Montana premiered. And it was another incident like Britney Spears where it went from 0 to 100. And all of a sudden, as soon as Hannah Montana premiered, everybody knew who she was.
Mm-hmm. And Hannah Montana was huge.
It was huge. It was like, I want to say probably to this day, it's probably one of the biggest Disney television shows out there. I read an interview that was from, I think it was around 2011 or so that Billy Ray did. And he was talking about how, like, he had no control over Miley. It got to a certain point and he had, like, zero control over her because the team that she had surrounding her, which her mom was a part of, and I think the reason why he said this was also to kind of shit on Tish. He couldn't control anything that she was doing. So, but what we also see is in 2007, 2008 was when she went on tour for the first time. She was 14, 15 years old, going on a world tour. And on this world tour, the Jonas Brothers were part of it as well. She had two acts. So she performed, the first part of it was Hannah Montana, and then the Jonas Brothers performed, and then the second act was Meet Miley Cyrus. So she essentially had 2 full shows. So I want to say, like, she performed probably for like 3 hours at like 14, 15 years old. I remember watching the documentary of the tour, and Kenny Ortega, which was also the director and choreographer for all the High School Musical movies.
I love Kenny Ortega.
He is amazing. He also directed Hocus Pocus, which, if you didn't know, my cat's name is Binks. Obviously, I'm a big Hocus Pocus fan.
I loved it. He also did Michael Jackson's last, like, his This Is It tour. He did that. So Kenny Ortega is a big deal, and he's, from what I've seen, Kenny Ortega is a safe adult in the world of kids. So
he is, and you know, you see this on the tour documentary for Miley. He was pretty much like helping us through, and there was like this stunt where she got lifted up in the air, and one night one of the dancers dropped her, and she got really scared because she was like, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do it anymore. And her mom was like, Miley, it's just like cheerleading, you need to chill out. It was so funny. And Kenny was just like on the side, and he was like, we don't have to do it. Like, we can find a different way to do it so you feel more comfortable. And like, they ended up doing it a different way where she like never, because before she would like get thrown up in the air a little bit, and then he made it to where nobody let her like leave the air. Someone was always grabbing onto her, which made her feel more comfortable. And I was like, Kenny, you're amazing. So
Kenny Ortega, we love you.
Yeah, I just remember thinking back to that. Like, if anything ever comes out about Kenny Ortega, I'm going to be very upset.
I'm going to be upset, but I don't think anything will, because all these years he's worked with so many people. I think he's just a good guy.
But yeah, like, you see the Hannah Montana level fame, which launched the Jonas Brothers career during that time as well, because you see them go on to the show, and then like they're one of the opening, kind of like the, I mean, I don't want to say they're the opening act, but they're like the middle act of that show. But like an international tour at 14, 15 years old, that's insane. That's like 3 to 4 shows a week. That's a lot for a kid. On top of that, like, then when she immediately got off tour, she jumped right back into filming Hannah Montana, which those were like 16-hour days, 5 days a week. And then she would have interviews, photo shoots, all of this stuff. So she never really got a break. And there was most recently, Used to Be Young came out. She did like a whole kind of like documentary type style thing where she talked about a bunch of different, talked about from the start of her life up until now. And in that she shared her schedule in that, like what a typical week would look like for her. And it did not stop. Like even on a Saturday, she went from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. She did not stop. Like interviews, photo shoots. And it wasn't just like one interview. It was like 5 interviews in a day.
Yeah.
And where she would have to change outfits, do different hair and makeup, like for all of these things. Like it was absolutely grueling for a child. Yeah, like a child to go through. Like her relationship with Nick Jonas was obviously very publicized.
Right.
And during that time, also she had a YouTube channel. She had the Miley and Mandy show with her best friend Mandy, who was a dancer. It was hilarious, honestly.
Miley and Mandy show. I'll never forget it. That's like the peak YouTube for me.
It was.
And then their beef with Selena and Demi. Oh.
Yes, that was hilarious too, because the Disney kids were fighting. And they're fighting over Nick Jonas. Oh, Nick. He brought so much drama with him. Yeah, but I mean, Miley and Mandy were being mean girls. I'll say that. They were being such mean girls. So, and on the topic of Miley Cyrus, in 2000, she released a book, Miles to Go. Did you read the book?
I didn't read the book because I wasn't big on Miley back then. So
I read the book front to back 1 million times. Also, there was like posters in it, so I took the posters out. But in the book, she also talks about her Prince Charming, which this was pre-Liam, but also at this time, I believe she was dating Justin, which was like an older dude. He was like an actor who was also in Taylor Swift's music video, Love Story.
Forgot about that. She did date him.
Yeah, she dated him for a minute. But in this book, she talks about her Prince Charming, which was the wonderful Nick Jonas. And she talks about how they met and how they kind of like fell in love, and then how they like fell apart, and then they were back together, and then, you know, all of that. And also during that time was when the Miley and Mandy show and the Selena and Demi show that they had on YouTube, they like dissed each other, and it was a whole big war. During this time also, you know, obviously she had her first big album come out, and that was huge. It had Simple Song on it, Seven Things, Breakout, like all those bangers came out on that one. And then in 2009, also during this year, this was a huge year for Miley Cyrus, she put out a song with the Jonas Brothers, Demi Lovato, and Selena Gomez. So they all did this Disney Channel thing. It's called Send It On. It was like to help the environment and all this stuff. So Miley and Nick had a solo together. Joe and Demi had a solo together. And then Selena and Kevin were together. Yes. And there's a whole big controversy that Selena didn't get paired with Nick, and Miley was paired with Nick. And I think that was what fueled the continuation of the drama between them.
Because it was like a whole love triangle situation with Selena.
And so they all had to work together, and they all had to be professional, which is another thing of like child stars. This is like their high school. So you see Miley being a bully during this time, but you also see that they're just kids. Like I think at some point it just really humanized them for me, because they're just kids.
Yeah. Just and everything feels like such a big deal when you're that age. Everything feels so like enlarged and massive, and like it's going to be the end of the world, and it's not. And sometimes I like feel really bad for celebrities that age. Well, for a lot of reasons, but you have like adult people writing these magazine articles and doing these interviews and things like that, who don't think of them as just kids. They think of them as like 30-year-old workers, and they'll get on these interviews or they'll have these articles written about them, and it's like they're so unprofessional and they're so terrible and they're so this. They're literally kids, like you said. Like, they're not thinking like a 30-year-old's gonna think.
Around that time, like, she had all of her relationships were publicized. There was all kinds of scrutiny about like what she was wearing. I remember she did the photo shoot in 2008, I believe, where she just had a sheet on, and it was like a very like artistic photo shoot. And I remember her talking about it of like she was like, me and my dad did that because like the person who did the photo shoot like asked us to do this and wanted it to be like very artistic and all this stuff, and all people saw was like Miley Cyrus is naked on a photo in a photo shoot.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, that's like the media grabs that we see throughout childhood stars. And in 2009 was when she went to Savannah, or Tybee Island, Georgia, to film the last song. And I still have never been able to find this, but I remember telling you about this. I remember reading or seeing an interview or something, I know it's out there somewhere, that she was bawling her eyes out in her mom's lap on the plane ride from LA to Savannah because she was so happy to be out of LA and out of the paparazzi's eye and out of all of this like public scrutiny and overworking that was going on with Hannah Montana and all of this stuff. She was so happy to be away from all of that, because also what we've learned about like LA, it's a very toxic place. If you're not the skinniest, you're not the prettiest, you're not doing this, like XYZ, like you don't fit in. It's a very isolating place also for a lot of these celebrities. When she went to go film the last song, she was so happy to be away from that environment. And that's where she also meets Liam Hemsworth. And Liam becomes like this huge significant person in her life and kind of like her protector. And I think in a way, I think a big reason why they stuck together for so long was because they trauma bonded in that, and he was her protector from the outside world, because he while he was an actor in Australia, he didn't have the worldwide public eye that she had.
Right.
So he was kind of like her safe person. And you see their relationship kind of like open her up to this like whole other side. Like that's when we really see this flip from Miley being this like goody two shoes. We never heard her cuss, never saw her, the only thing we saw was that photo shoot, and then she kind of retreated back in her shell and she was a very good girl, all this stuff. And then in 2009, after she met Liam, I think it kind of opened a door for her to be like, you know what? I'm not going to be a Disney star forever. So fuck all these people. I'm going to do the last song. I'm going to say bitch in it, which I thought was, I remember watching that in the last song and being like, oh, she just said bitch. Dressing more provocatively, like, the last song, it's rated PG, but like, honestly, it's an older movie. Like it's not for kids. So it's for like older, like early teens.
Really should be a
PG-13
situation.
Kind of. Yes. And what she talked about was like, she was like, my fans are growing with me. And so I wanted to do a movie that was growing, like age appropriate, because she was like, I'm 17, almost 18 years old. So like, I want my fans that are also 17, almost 18 years old, to go on this journey with me. And that was what I really, that's like the comparison that I see with her and Britney, of like, cause Britney was like, I'm going to go away from this like teeny bopper type thing, and I'm going to become my own person. And as soon as people start doing that, you see the media criticize them. So Miley gets on stage at the Teen Choice Awards in 2009, and she sings "Party in the
So
USA,"
good.
and she's in little booty
So
shorts,
good.
looking all cute. She's got that furry vest on, like she looks hella good. And then when she's singing, she's holding onto an ice cream pole, and she dips that booty down and comes back up. It's not like it was meant to be provocative. I think she was just holding on to that for balance because it was a moving ice cream cart. And she dipped it low and came back up, and people were like, holy shit, she's pole dancing on stage. I remember that being the headline for weeks after that. Like, Miley Cyrus is on stage pole dancing. Don't let your kid watch Hannah Montana anymore. You know, all this other like crazy things were coming out. And I still have a memory of watching this. I was in one of my friends' house at the time, and we were watching it on TV, and then we started like performing it like that afterwards around the house. We were like, oh, she looks so good.
Party in the USA, though, it is such a good song. Like, I don't care who you are.
It is.
If you don't get down to Party in the USA, don't talk to me.
Yeah. It's such a good song.
Yeah.
Like, you can't help but sing it every single time it comes on. That's just another, like, pop song, you know. As soon as it starts, you know it. Like, the first two notes, you know it. The end of 2009, she goes on tour. She does a Wonderworld tour. And on the Wonderworld tour, you see a completely different side of her. Like, it's not a very kid-friendly show. It's like a lot of different wardrobes, twerking. That's when that started. Like a lot of like more like sexual dance moves and everything. And I think like she was showing people like, I'm growing up.
Right.
I'm not this like image that you have created me out to be. And she's like, I'm not Hannah Montana in real life. So let's move on from that. So you see that, and then the last song comes out in 2010. Can't Be Tamed comes out around that time as well. Like after the last song, Can't Be Tamed comes out, and then the album drops, and the album is a lot more it's an older album. Like the cover of the Can't Be Tamed album is like her in this like tight shirt. It's like a belly shirt showing off her abs. She looks so good. Her hair during this era, I know she says that she talks about like how many hair extensions she had in, but it looked so good.
So good. And I think Can't Be Tamed was the perfect like song choice and album choice name, you know, because that was the whole point of it.
Yeah. Like that, it was like she was in, and part of it, like she was in a bird cage. Like you can't keep her caged forever in this like Disney type situation. Like she's not, she's going to break out. And I think it was such a perfect thing. And I love that music video. That music video is one of my favorite music videos that she's ever done. So during that era, also, I would like to say that during that time, she came to where I'm from. I'll say it. She came to my school because our school did Blessings in a Backpack, and her and Billy Ray donated $1 million to it, and she came.
That's crazy.
I know, it was okay. This was like peak Hannah Montana, Miley Cyrus, like everything was peak. And she came out on stage. Okay, so we got the news the day before that they were coming. And I honestly didn't believe it.
I wouldn't
was
either.
Like, the fuck?
And
I was like, what? Miley Cyrus and Billy Ray Cyrus are coming here? That's a joke. And then when they walked out on stage, let me tell you, that was insane. She like gave out food. I got a Capri Sun that she touched. It hung up on my wall for like years. It was in a Ziploc bag, hung up on my wall. Everybody's making fun of me for it. Miley Cyrus came to my school, and that was like the highlight of my life at that time because it was peak Miley Cyrus time. Billy Ray, I really believe that he was intoxicated. I don't want to start a false rumor, but
checks out though. If
he
we
had
look at it.
He had what was in front of him that looked like a T, and then when he walked through the crowd and was like letting us talk to him and touch him and everything, like he smelled like straight alcohol.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I mean, it does check out with that time.
Yeah.
But anyways, also after that, she filmed the last season of Hey Montana. She also filmed LOL or LOL, however you want to say the title of that movie. She filmed that movie with Demi Moore. She filmed So Undercover. There was a lot of those like kind of older movies that she started doing. And during this time, she was on and off with Liam Hemsworth. She didn't go on, she went on tour, but she went on like, she played more festivals than like actual tours.
Right.
And then 2013, we see kind of like what I want to call people saying her going off the rails and spiraling. That was when she bleached her hair and then cut her hair really short. You see the relationship with Liam Hemsworth kind of like fall off. We Can't Stop came out, which was a very like mature song. The Bangers era is an iconic era. I fucking love that album.
I love We Can't Stop.
That tour. I saw that tour. It was so good. I saw that in 2014, I believe. And that whole era was, you know, obviously her swinging naked on a wrecking ball. Her making these like kind of questionable choices where she has looked back and she's been like, what the fuck was I thinking?
Yeah.
But it was also, I think, her trauma response to like wanting to separate herself and do like a hard separation.
Right.
Not just like a gradual, which we tried to see the gradual separation, and even then she was getting shit. So she was like, fuck it, I'm just going to do like a hard leap. And the hard leap was to the Bangers tour where she had inflatable penises on stage. So,
which, by the way, Wrecking Ball is such like a good emotional song, but of course, all people think about is her naked swinging on a wrecking ball. Like that's the meme that came out of it. But if you listen to the song, it's so good. It's so good.
Bangers, the album is obviously a breakup album with Liam. And, you know, while there is some songs on there, she has a song like SMS Bangers is with Britney Spears, which is iconic. Love it. But there's also some really heartbreaking songs like Someone Else, Maybe You're Right, Drive. Drive, I think, is one of, like, lyrically one of the best songs that she has ever put out. It is so heartbreaking. I love it. Love it so much. But people don't look at that album and be like, oh, this is, like, some of the best writing that Miley Cyrus has ever done. They see the extreme behaviors that she was doing. So I think that's why a lot of that album was overlooked. She just really wanted to separate herself from Disney. And she was also going through a breakup with someone that she had been in a relationship with for like 4 years.
And was such like a pivotal person for her too.
Yeah. Like 17 years old to like 21, they've been together. Like that's such pivotal time. Time to be with someone. And she's also talked about how harshly she was judged as a kid. And she's like, as an adult, she's like, I could never judge a kid this harshly in my, like, ever in my life. I could never think about doing that. Because she was like just constantly, no matter what she did, if she dressed in like full covered turtleneck. You couldn't see anything. She would still get shit on. And she would still get called this, like, horrible person. So she was just like, fuck it. I'm gonna walk around naked.
Yeah.
I'm gonna dance on Robin Thicke.
Well, and that's what we see out of both, like, her and Britney is. It's just like, you know what? Nothing pleases any of you anyway, so I'm gonna do the most outlandish thing ever to kind of lash out a little bit.
Yeah. Because no one talks about, like, obviously she performed We Can't Stop, and then she performed with Robin Thicke and everything. But then, like, the next performance that she did was Wrecking Ball. It wasn't at the same award show, but it was around the same time. And no one talks about that performance. And she was sobbing on stage singing that song because it was the first time she had ever performed it. And no one talks about that. People are just like, oh, let's look at Miley during this time. And they show those parts, but they don't show the, like, heartbreaking, like, hurt that she was feeling during that time as well. And I think a lot of it was for attention. To get Liam's attention too, potentially. You know, there was a lot of attention-seeking behaviors there. And no one looks at that. Like, this girl is heartbroken and struggling, and all we're going to do is talk shit about her.
And they don't, it's almost like they don't want them to look human. They want them to look like a robot, you know, when all these people are just humans.
Yeah. I want to read those lyrics. Okay, so for those of you who are not going to go and listen to the song Robot by Miley Cyrus, I'm going to read the fucking lyrics.
We're going to force you to listen to it right now through Kate's voice. You don't know what that was. Don't come at us. Copyright.
Don't come at us. Copyright. Okay, that's what it sounds like. Okay, so she says, I'm just going to read the first verse and everything. So, it's been like this from the start, one piece after another to make my heart. You mistake the game for being smart. Stand here, sell this, hit your mark. But the sound of the steel and the crush and the grind, it all screams, who am I to decide my life? But in time, it all dies. There's nothing left inside. Just rusted metal that was never even mine. I would scream, but I'm just this hollow shell. Waiting here, begging please, set me free so I can feel. Stop trying to live my life for me. I need to breathe. I'm not your robot. Stop telling me I'm part of this big machine. I'm breaking free. Can't you see? I can love, I can speak without someone else operating me. You gave me eyes and now I see. I'm not your robot. I'm just me. And no one ever fucking talks about how amazing Miley Cyrus's lyrics are. No one ever talks about that. No one ever is just like, she's such an incredible songwriter. And she is, because she comes from, like, a musician family.
Right.
But no one ever talks about that.
Well,
and she's such a powerhouse singer, too. And everyone's just like, she sounds like shit. I'm like, bitch.
Well, and 9 times out of 10, these artists who are having these breakdowns and these spirals, they're writing about it. Maybe at the beginning, maybe even before it even happens. You know, Britney Spears had Lucky come out. I don't know if she was involved in writing Lucky or not. But if you listen to that, that speaks to depression and loneliness of being famous. And that's what Miley Cyrus' songs are doing too. They're speaking to how they feel, and everybody just like, it's like, oh, this is just a good song. But like, no, it's telling us something.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Taylor Swift has Lucky One.
So,
and Nothing New.
And now. Nothing New. Yeah. So good.
So good. Lindsay Lohan. What was that song? Rumors.
Oh, listen, I'm tired of rumors starting. Listen, I love that song.
I'm sick of being followed.
Give Lindsay the respect she deserves. Good. Yeah.
Seriously, and that music video. Loved that music video. I was like 7, 8 years old, something, or whenever that song came out. I was like dancing around. Yeah. My mom was like, "How did you learn to dance like that?" Like Lindsay Lohan.
Lindsay Lohan. We do not hate on Lindsay Lohan here. We love a Lindsay Lohan.
No. She has a movie coming out. and I'm so freaking excited for it.
Mm-hmm.
It's coming out this month on Netflix. It's a Patrick's Day movie.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty excited.
Go check that out.
Yes.
Shameless plug to everybody.
We'll do your promo, Lindsay.
Yeah.
Just let us know.
So we're talking directly to so many celebrities this week.
We are.
Baby, no.
I love it.
Thought you'd always be mine.
Mine.
Luda. Okay.
I miss Ludacris so much, but we can talk about that some other time.
When he pauses making the Fast and Furious movies, you know,
he'll come back to us.
He will. He will. I don't think they're ever going to end, though.
No. He'll be 105 years old in Fast and the Furious.
Well, speaking of Ludacris, who has a song with Justin Bieber.
Our favorite JB.
Our favorite JB. We are going to go into talking about JB.
I'm ready for it.
And I feel like I have the knowledge to go into this, and I've been waiting my entire life to talk about this because I've been a believer. Well, I would say like my believerness paused when I went to college. No, I take that back because I was literally on the floor in my friend's apartment in 2015 when Purpose came out, listening to that album at midnight. But probably after Purpose came out, around that time was when I stopped following Justin as much. I had a Twitter that was a Belieber fan account back in the day.
That's how you know that you're a real fan.
Yeah, I had a fan account. It was pretty popular, and I deleted that Twitter long ago.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace to that. So I tweeted all the time about Justin Bieber. Yes. And before I deleted my Facebook, that was all my memories was Justin Bieber stuff.
Does it ever like make you like a little bit like, it's just crazy to think back to like when Twitter was first, like when it first came out and we were all just like running rampant on Twitter.
Yeah.
And we did these wild things like post about a celebrity 24/7. Just on
all the time.
You know?
All the time. It was like Justin Bieber updates. Like I remember when he first popped out with his haircut, like the world went crazy.
Yeah.
When he was first sighted with Selena Gomez and like the rumors about them dating started circulating. Like I remember where I was the moment that it happened, the moment that word dropped that he was actually dating her, all this stuff. Because he had done a New Year's performance of One Less Lonely Girl and Selena was up there. And I was just kind of like, there's no way. There's no way. But anyways, we're going to go back to the start of Justin's career and life. So he was born in 1994, March 1st. So his birthday was just a few days ago. He is 30 now.
Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to Justin.
Happy birthday, JB.
Yeah, so his mom, Patty, and Jeremy, they weren't together for very long after he was born, and his dad wasn't really like that big of a part of his life for a while. His dad is now pretty big part of his life, but kind of back then, like his mom, they were both really young. I believe they were 18 or so when they had Justin, so they were both like super young parents, and his grandparents helped raise him, which you see that in the documentaries and everything of like him going back to his hometown and kind of being in his childhood bedroom. And you know, they were really like impoverished family, like they didn't have a lot, so he leaned on music to kind of, I think, deal with a lot of what he was going through. You know, his mom and his dad eventually, you know, got him into like guitar lessons and drumming, and he played trumpet for a while. And like all these people were super just like enamored by his talent because he just had this like raw, beautiful talent at like everything he did. If you've watched Never Say Never, like you see that like growth from like, I think it started at like 3 years old. He was just like beating around on stuff, and then they got him a drum set, and like the kid took off. He was like 6 years old playing drums for like a professional band in Canada. Yeah. like he is just a super talented person. Okay, here we go into Scooter Braun. So the dreaded part, talking about Scooter Braun.
Yeah.
So Justin would do different talent shows, and his mom started recording him, and his grandparents, they started recording him, and they were just like, you know what, this is a fun thing, like, let's post this to YouTube. So it was like mid-aughts time. So about 2007, his YouTube name was Kid Raw, which was so cute. And in 2007, he posted a cover, So Sick, by Neo. He posted that, and it just kind of like blew up, and it caught the eye of Scooter Braun, who was like, kind of did like scouting and stuff for different record labels, and like he was just kind of like a low level person, and he saw that and he was like, this kid is it. Like, I want this kid. We're going to sign him, get him somewhere, sign him, all this stuff. He had talks with a bunch of different people, and including Justin Timberlake. So it was kind of like, it came down to Justin Timberlake and Usher, of like who wanted him to kind of be his mentor, and like the record label and all of that stuff. So it ended up being Usher, because they were like two Justins. People get confused, whatever. I thought this was a really cool fact that I found out, but Justin and Usher were the same age when they got signed.
Oh, that's cool. So Usher probably could understand. I mean, Justin Timberlake could too, obviously, because Justin Timberlake started young. But like, I feel like Justin Timberlake had like the support of a band, and had that experience, versus Usher, who's always been a solo artist.
Usher also pointed out, he was like, I kind of had a slow ramp up, like I had these steps, and you know, I was just climbing up it, and he was like, and Justin was just like, phew, like thrown up, because when One Time came out, like his entire life changed. Like overnight, he went from playing shows of like 50 people to playing shows of like 50,000 people. Like it super blew up. And then he started like performing in malls, and those malls were filled with thousands of people cramming in there just trying to see him. And like they had to just like stop performing at malls and stop performing at these like little festivals and everything. They were performing at like water parks and stuff. They had to stop because he was getting so big. He was just like the cutest little kid running around with his like hair flip. Do you remember that part in Never Say Never where they do the slow-mo of his hair flip? Like, it was so cute. And
everybody was like emulating that. Like the Justin Bieber hair, everybody knows what that is, especially if you were a kid around that time. You know what that is.
Yeah, and like that little like flip that he would do, like the hair flip and everything, like everybody was doing that. Even if they were, I know there were so many boys at my school that would talk shit about Justin, and they would talk shit about Justin to me because I had some of my guy friends, and they had the same hair, and they would flip it.
And you'd be like, you know where you got that? Justin.
I was like, listen, I know that you.
I know you're a believer on the inside.
I know you love Justin secretly. Just tell me.
Just tell me.
It's fine. Going off of that, like people were also very harsh towards him, like especially the male population of the world. Like girls were going crazy for him. But then on the other hand, a lot of the male population was just calling him derogatory names because his voice, they were like, he's a teenager. His voice shouldn't be that high pitched, you know? And
basically emasculating and they do that to every single young male artist, is like, if you can sing, if you can dance, it's a stereotype of your sexual orientation usually. And they use that to be derogatory and rude and hateful, which if he was, there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm just saying, like, society tends to throw those slanderous things out there to every young male artist who sings a higher pitch than they should.
Yeah.
Quote unquote.
And like his voice is what really got him to like where he was in his career, and his dancing and his wardrobe and his hair. Like all of these things played a huge factor into why he was such a global sensation. Like around this time, Variety came out and said he was a once-in-a-generation superstar who charted a swift and stunning rise from YouTube talent to global phenomenon overnight.
And he did. Like,
literally.
There was a time where you didn't know who Justin Bieber was, and then all of a sudden, without you really noticing, you knew who he was, and you can't get away from him, you know?
Literally. Like, I have a picture. So I went to his concert back in 2010. That's the concert where I got trampled.
Happily
got trampled at the Justin Bieber concert. And so I guess now that we're here, I can tell like the full story about it. I was in line. There was like he had a pre-show back then. So he had kind of like, it wasn't really a meet and greet, but he had like a pre-show for people. And I didn't get tickets to that. But there was a line of people up there. And my mom was like, you know what? Just hop in that line. What's the worst that can happen? And so me and my friend walked over there and we like hopped in the line. We were like, cool. So my mom and dad, this is in Louisville, Kentucky. So we were in front of the Yum Center, and there's like where the line was going into the Yum Center, and then there's like a pathway, and then there's stairs. And then over here is the road. And then you cut down this way, and then there's like another, I don't know, if you've been to the Yum Center, you know what I'm talking about. While we were in line, my mom sees this tour bus pull up, like right in, because they're sitting here on the stairs, and then like 10 feet away, there's this tour bus that pulls up like right in front of them. And Justin comes out of the tour bus, and he like waves to my family that's sitting there, because it's like my mom, dad, and then my other friend Ariel was sitting there. And my mom goes, Kate. And as soon as she says Kate, I turn around, I snap this picture, like, because I had a little digital camera. I snapped this picture. So in the picture, you can see Justin in it, like in his head and the tour bus and everything. And my family sitting right there too. And as soon as she said my name and I turned around, everybody else turned around and they saw him and they took off running.
Yeah.
And I was like, fight or flight, I'm running too. And so I started running, and I'm also not a very coordinated person. And it's a huge group of girls, and everybody's screaming and everybody's going crazy. So I got shoved down. I fell, slid across the concrete, got beat up, busted my ass completely. Somebody stepped on me. A couple people stepped on me. And then I get up and keep going, because at that point he was no longer there, because they were like, we got to get out of here. So he drove by on his tour bus, and he was like, they stopped the tour bus right here where he was in the window, and he was like waving at us and everything. So I was like, from me to the computer screen to Justin. And yeah, it was a whole big thing. My ass got up and kept running, you know, dedication to see Justin. I broke my camera. I broke my phone.
Everything was broken, ruined.
I was bleeding. I had holes in my clothes, all of this stuff. And then probably about 20-30 minutes later, Ryan Good, which was another person that was on his team, he walked by, and I was like, oh my God, you're Ryan Good. And he's like, yeah, hey, cool, whatever. And I was like, I got trampled earlier, like, and I showed him all this stuff, and he was like, do you need first aid? And I was like, no, I'm good, I'm great. And my mom was like, why didn't you play it up? You could have met Justin if you played it up. And I was like,
could have. They could have been like, you need first aid, and then you could have been like really hurt.
I should have just been like walking around. I had bruises from like head to toe.
Yeah.
I was so miserable for like a week after that.
You could have been like on the news as the girl who got trampled trying to see Justin. Like,
because there was those things going on. Like, you see it too. Like in the Never Say Never documentary, like you see people being wheeled out in ambulances and all of this stuff because they get trampled. And that was like a common thing that would happen, was he couldn't go anywhere without creating such a crowd surge and people trampling over top of each other to try to get to him.
Which, how terrifying, one, as like the star who's everybody's trampling to see. But also, like, those are your fans, so you don't want them to get hurt. So I'm sure that there's, like, a level of guilt that comes with that, too.
Yeah.
Like, not that it's their fault, but just, like, a level of responsibility, I think, that artists probably feel, you know?
Yeah. Like, I could never imagine myself running after a celebrity now, but at, like, 14 years old, that was my life.
I kind of feel like now, and maybe it's just because my circle is older, so I don't see it as much, but I don't feel like that we have that surge as much. Like, even with Taylor, there's people who try to get to her about saying that doesn't ever happen. Obviously it does. But I think that there's almost, like, more of a level of respect than maybe that there has been in the past.
Yeah. Definitely, to an extent. I think there's a lot more respect because I think we also see what it does to just people in general. Like, you know, him running away from the paparazzi and him running away from fans. Like, there's that one video of him just, like, walking, and he has, like, a skateboard or whatever, or is a scooter. I don't know what it is, but he has something, and he just, like, hops on it and, like, gets the fuck out of there because there's like hundreds of people, like, coming at him, and he's just, like, so overwhelmed. As a 15-year-old, like, that's super overwhelming. Like, you're like, oh, I'm grateful for this, but also you're like,
right,
holy shit, because he went from a literal nobody to a huge celebrity overnight. He was dating this girl back when he first became famous, and she was just like a normal girl. Her name was Caitlin Beatles. And then her family became famous because she was dating Justin. And like, their YouTube channel kicked off. Like, her brother Christian created a YouTube channel, and then that started, they knew someone, that Maddie B kid. Do you know who that is?
I do. Yeah.
So, like, that started all because of these connections with Justin. So, like, multiple people became famous because of Justin. The girl from his baby music video, Jasmine V. Like, I met her at that concert, and she opened for him, and her music is like, I still look back at that music and I'm just like, that was some great, not just like R&B music and stuff, but like, she has created some awesome music. She also had a very successful YouTube channel. Like, so many people's careers kicked off because of Justin, and including Scooter Braun, because Scooter Braun's, like, whole management company wouldn't have started if he didn't find Justin, because he was a nobody too. Like, he was literally just this random dude working at a record label,
like a scout.
And then all of a sudden, like, he has overnight fame as well. Like, I don't think that we have ever really seen, like, a manager, like, get this much publicity before, you know?
Yeah. And part of that is that Scooter Braun is kind of slimy. So, like, that's what he gets his publicity for now. But at the beginning, it was because he was representing Justin, and then that led to him representing multiple big stars, and he's almost created his own fame from that.
Yeah. I think what really turned me away from, which I think we should go into, like, a whole episode of Scooter Braun, but what turned me away from Scooter Braun was when he made Ariana perform after the Manchester bombing. Like, I can't. I don't think that was in 2017, and that was when I was just like, oh, absolutely not. And then Demi Lovato hired him after that, and I was like, why would you hire someone after you've seen how they treated someone, you know? Like,
especially since Demi Lovato has had such mental health and substance abuse, like, turbulence anyways. Like, he obviously doesn't care. He's obviously not going to put your needs above the money. But I was thinking, too, when you were talking about Justin running from that crowd of people, like, his fight or flight has to be being triggered. Like, has to be being triggered every single time that something like that happens. And when you're young like that, and your fight or flight is constantly being triggered like that, that's wiring your brain. That's a very, like, important time developmentally. So, like, I think that sets them up in adulthood for a hypersensitive, like, fight or flight response, you know?
For sure, because you can't even, like, walk down the street without all these people coming and attacking you. There was a documentary that he did while he was in Paris, and in the crowd, he was like signing autographs and everything. And then people started pushing, and they pushed against the metal gate and caught his arm in it. And his security had to like pull him out of there. And he was like literally like holding his shoulder, and he was just like, I cannot move my shoulder. And they thought like something was seriously wrong with his shoulder. That was in 2010, I believe.
Yeah. Because it's
like,
terrifying, because people get hurt, and celebrities can get hurt. People think that like that wouldn't cause a celebrity to get hurt because they love the person. Why would they hurt? And it's not that people purposely do it. I mean, you never know. You could have somebody in the crowd who could purposely hurt them. But it's like when people start pushing and trying to get closer, things like that happen.
Yeah. And like, I mean, that makes you wary to go and sign autographs again for people, especially if there's like a metal gate there, and you're just like, well, is it going to push into me again? Am I going to get hurt again? You know, all those different things. And like, we've seen Justin perform through pain. Like, he performed like at least 6 shows, I believe, on a broken foot, which is crazy to think about. Like, dancing, performing for like an hour, all that stuff is performed on a broken foot.
Like, that's an impossible standard to hold a kid to as well. Yeah. You know, I mean, to hold anybody to, honestly, that's like terrible self-preservation and care, but like, especially a kid.
To keep going through his life. So we're probably up to like 2010. So 2011 was when he started dating Selena. During that time, that was when people started sending death threats to Selena, which is a very terrifying thing as a person. Just because you're dating someone, like, she was a kid herself. I think she was like 18 at the time. Yeah. But she's a kid. Like, he's 16, I believe, and she's 18. You know, like, they're kids. And you're sending one of them death threats. And then people were also sending him death threats. Like, if you don't break up with her, then I'm going to kill you. And like, it's just crazy shit. Like, what is going on? Which I think that, you know, probably had a huge impact on Selena Gomez's mental health at that time. Because how could it not? Like, you log onto the internet, instead of people talking about, you know, your new song that's out, or Wizards of Waverly Place, or anything that you're doing, they're talking about you dating Justin Bieber and how much they want you dead.
If you're seeing that message all the time, nobody's psyche can withstand that. You know, and I know that people say, well, they're a celebrity or they're an online presence, so they sign up for that. And do they? Do people sign up to maybe open the door for criticism of their work? Probably. But do they sign up to get death threats? Probably not. Like, it's taking it a step too far.
So in 2011, he was also on CSI. I remember that. That was fun to see. I think, if I'm not mistaken, he had like a 2-part episode. Like, I think he was on one episode, and then he came back and he was on another episode, and he died. I remember, like, Josh makes fun of it all the time. Like, there's different memes about how Justin Bieber died in the CSI episode. Yeah. He's like, he's a terrible actor. I was like, Josh, stop.
Every child star tries out everything. I don't care who they are. If they started in music, they're going to dabble in acting. If they started in acting, they're going to switch over to music at some point. Yeah. It's just what they do.
They're all just kind of working together. It all blends together. So in 2012, he released Boyfriend, which was kind of like a sexually mature song. And that whole album, which was Believe, was kind of like older and kind of growing with him, because he was 18 at the time. You know, he was growing up. He wasn't this like little kid with the hair anymore. Like, he was a grown up. It was back and forth with Selena. There was all kinds of like crazy rumors. There's that one part where he's like, ow, ow. And like, he's like shirtless, and he's like hip thrusting in the music video. And it's just like all, yeah. What a time that was. That was like
what a time, that was like, to be alive.
2012, 2013 era was like crazy Justin Bieber era. We start seeing him get hospitalized for different things. Like he has to stop his tour at one point and get hospitalized. You know, like it's never really talked about like why he was hospitalized during that time. But then in 2014 was when he got arrested for like reckless driving, I believe. And if I'm not mistaken, he got a DUI during that time as well. He got like resisting arrest, assaulting a police officer. Like there was all kinds of different charges. I think he got also assaulting a like paparazzi person. You know, all these different things were happening around that time. And this is the funny part that I was so I've been like teasing Autumn with this, and if she doesn't find it funny, then yeah, I'm gonna be upset. But so Justin Bieber in 2013 went to Amsterdam and visited the Anne Frank house, and he wrote in her guest book, he wrote all these like nice things about her, and then he also wrote Anne Frank would have been a believer. And people called him a narcissist for it.
That I would have listen if we went and did the same thing, I would have written in there, and Frank would have been a fan of the Verified Therapist podcast.
Boom.
I don't think that's iconic, is what that is.
Like, why were people up in arms about that? Like, and that's where you see, like, they build these people up and then they tear them down. And like, he was going through a lot during this time, and all you're gonna do is you're just gonna tear him down. Like, he made a cute little funny comment, and like all of a sudden you're like up in arms about it. Like, who gives a shit that he wrote that? She probably would have been. So whatever. People, grow up. Grow up. Grow up, dude. Come on.
We're looking at you, the people on TikTok who hate us. We're looking at you.
Yeah. Like, also during this time, you know, he was caught peeing in a bucket, abandoning his pet monkey in Germany.
Yikes. That's sad. Yeah, that's a little sad. Here's the thing, though. We see all of these stars take the same, typically, you know, you have some deviation, but you see a lot of them take the same kind of, like, path, right? Like, they hit that age and they start getting DUIs. They start being photographed partying. They start getting these, you know, charges that is really just a result of them probably having too much access to too much of what they don't need. And too many yes men around their life, and that kind of thing that you talked about before that makes them feel untouchable.
Yeah.
Partnered with probably trauma that comes along with being a young, famous person. Like, if we're just being honest, it's traumatic, I'm sure.
So in Justin Bieber's Never Say Never movie, that also grossed $73 million, which is insane to think about.
Yeah.
The only other concert movie that has beat it out has now been the Eras Tour. Which we knew that was going to happen. All hail Queen Taylor.
Yeah, we're a big Eras Tour fan. Before we finish this, we are going to talk about that briefly. But anyways, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. You see Mama Jan, which is his vocal coach, and she is really, like, talking to him about, like, you need to rest your voice. You're sick. Don't perform when you're sick. I know you're going to let these people down, but this is like, you cancel 1 or 2 shows and, like, move them down the line, or down the line, you're going to be canceling like 5, 6, 7 shows. And you see her really check him and be like, listen to me. Like, I'm the expert here. And this is what needs to happen for you to be better and for you to stay performing and save your voice. All of these things. And then you also see, like, the other group of people, like his mom, Ryan Good is there, Scooter Braun. There was a photographer that was on tour with them. His name was Alfredo Flores. I'm sure everyone knows who he is. He is like a huge photographer, has done a lot of stuff with like Ariana Grande and everybody. All of these people were like in his corner to like help him and check him and everything. And then you see later on that a lot of these people are not in his corner anymore. And I wonder if that has a lot to do with the downward spiral. Like when he turned 18, is that when he kind of let all of these people go? Is that, you know, the time that he was just kind of like, I'm an adult now and I don't need all these people here.
Yeah.
That are going to check me. If you check me, you're out.
Yeah. And we kind of, I think what happens is like they get these people when they're younger and then they kind of hit that stage where they kind of want to rebel a little bit. And so when these people are like telling them, like, they kind of get sick of like listening to people, I think, at that point. So they try to take the reins themselves, and so they get rid of all the people who are probably trying to look out for them. Demi Lovato did the same thing right before she relapsed. She stopped talking to all of her like recovery people that she had kind of put in those positions in her life to kind of keep her grounded and accountable. She was discarding them. Yeah. And then she ended up relapsing. So like we see that where like they kind of discard the people who were trying to help them, because when you're a celebrity, there's always people who are willing to be in your corner to get the bag and not tell you what you need to hear, but tell you what you want to hear, you know, just to be associated with you. Yeah.
And that's the sad reality of it. To kind of close out Justin Bieber, you know, him and Selena's breakup was very public and it was very back and forth relationship. And then 2 months later, he married Hailey Bieber. I have my own personal thoughts on that.
Which are what?
Which are, if you were dating someone off and on for like 6 years, and then 2 months after you broke up, they turn around and marry someone else,
it would be hard. Yeah.
And people are like, let this go, Selena. Like, just let them move on. And like, blah, 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 blah. Could you let it go? Like that. No. And that's what also makes me think, like, when people joke about like this being an arranged marriage between him and Hailey, I'm like, maybe it was.
Maybe it was.
They're both part of Hillsong, and Hillsong has not to get controversial, but Hillsong has some culty behavior.
No, I'm going to go ahead and say it. Y'all can put me on a record. Y'all can put me on TikTok. Y'all can put me on Instagram. Y'all can put me on whatever you want. Not that anybody cares because it's just me. But Hillsong is a cult. 100% is a cult. So, like, y'all can hate on me. Sing your Hillsong songs. That's great. The Hillsong music is specifically made to trigger parts of your brain and make you emotional. But whatever. So, and that worries me for Justin Bieber and and all the celebrities who are involved. It's just not a good look in my eyes. Like, I'm not giving you a lot of respect at that point. Because Hillsong didn't come out with it, but people who had left Hillsong came out with a documentary, and Carl Lentz was in it, and it was a whole thing. So we'll talk about that though on a different episode, because I have a lot of thoughts on religious cults.
Yeah. We can also talk about Scientology too, because Scientology is a big celebrity religion too.
Yeah. Shout out to Tom Cruise.
Yeah. Okay. To wrap it up, Justin and Hailey, I don't know what the fuck is going on with their marriage. Something's going on.
Stephen Baldwin has asked for prayers.
Her dad's going crazy on the internet. What the hell is he talking about? You sent me that video the other day, and I said, I watched it, and Josh was sitting beside me, and he was like, what the fuck is this person talking about? I was like, I don't know. I don't know what these loony people are talking about anymore. Anyways, what's your favorite Justin Bieber song? Do you know enough about him to like deep dive into it?
I'm gonna be honest. I think Boyfriend is my favorite one, or I don't know enough to like not hit the top, the hot button songs. I also really like Love Yourself.
That's a good one.
Just because like I feel it in my soul, and like When I listen to it, I'm like, yeah.
You can go and love yourself.
Yourself. What's yours?
Ooh.
I'm like going through his whole discography, and I'm just like,
I was about to say, you're probably about to hand me one that I've never heard.
To be honest, like a lot of the My World 2.0 songs are so good. Like, I mean, that's the album that we got with like Baby and Somebody to Love, which he also performs with Usher.
I just need somebody to love.
So good. Like this whole album is so good. Up is so Eenie Meenie is on this album.
I've heard that one. Yeah.
But probably my favorite one is Overboard, and it's the original one is with Jessica Jarrell. But when I saw him, he performed it with Jasmine B, which was so good. And they were also dating during that time, so it was like really. Yeah. And then in the movie, he performed it with Miley Cyrus. So to wrap it up.
We got multiple versions out there.
To wrap up the Miley and Justin part of this, they performed Overboard together, and I'm gonna put a little clip in here, and we're gonna see that. We're gonna see them performing together. It was so cute. Miley looked so good. Justin looked so good. That was the days where I was like such a fangirl, and like everything he did made me like want to faint. So yeah.
It was peak time for Justin.
Yeah, like when he came out on stage to perform at that concert, like screamed so loud I blacked out. Like it was yeah, it was a lot. Like I never really understood how people were like all the time like passing out when they would like meet people and stuff. I'd be like, what the fuck? Yeah. And then like until it like almost happened to me, and I just like screamed so loud and was like fueled with so many emotions that were so overwhelming that like everything went black for a second, and I was like, God, God help me, I'm going down.
That's what it is.
But yeah, it's also just like core memories that I have with Justin. Like there's so many different things, and you know, I appreciate Justin for my like teenage years. He's so cute. Oh my God, he was so cute. Anyways, my parents were, I think, very concerned with me a few times because I was like so obsessed.
Hey,
honestly, looking back, that was pretty concerning behaviors at times. You know,
so
cool. That's gonna wrap up the second part of the episode. I hope you enjoyed it. We got to talk about a lot of people. We also figured out that we couldn't shut up about anyone that we talked about.
Anybody. We just don't shut up. We're born to yap.
Yeah. So we're also testing out new audio and doing different things. We got different setups. Like, it's all a work in progress. So if this sounds like shit, I'm sorry.
Sounds bad. Don't tell us. Don't say anything because we know.
Yeah. Just like if you have my number, send me a text message and be like, it sounds like shit.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell us personally, but like, don't leave it in the comments.
Okay. So we will be back with another episode next week.
Go to our Instagram, go to our TikTok, follow us, like, share,
leave a review.
Do whatever y'all got to do.
Yeah. We appreciate you all so much, and we will see y'all next week. Have a good rest of your week.
Bye.
Bye.